Hello. The day it all started unraveling wasn't supposed to be anything extraordinary. Emily had been called to testify in her boss's divorce proceedings. It was supposed to be routine, a formality. She was a key witness, having worked closely with him for years, and naturally, she insisted I didn't need to worry. Just a lot of boring legal stuff, she'd said that morning, sipping her coffee like nothing in the world was out of place. I should have known better. Emily left the house dressed sharply, a figure of elegance in her navy blue suit, her pregnant belly just beginning to show. She kissed me on the cheek as I stayed behind to tackle a backlog of client emails. Everything seemed normal, but the court's revelations would flip my life upside down before sundown. I didn't hear from her all day, which wasn't unusual during work-related events. But then I got a call from my buddy Mike around 3 p.m. Mike's a private investigator. Not the kind of guy who calls you out of the blue unless something's up. "Jason, man, I don't want to overstep here," he began, his tone unusually cautious. "But I was at the courthouse for another case, and your wife's testimony caught my attention." My stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" Mike hesitated. "She was called as a character witness, right? Well, her name came up in, let's call it an unexpected context. Are you sure everything's good between you two?" I froze. "What do you mean?" "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "I overheard the opposing attorney grilling her. They suggested she had a personal relationship with her boss. It got heated. She denied it, but something felt off. The way she answered, the way he looked, it didn't sit right. The words hit me like a hammer. I felt the blood drain from my face. Personal relationship? You're kidding me. I wish I was. You want me to dig?" I didn't know what to say. My mind was spinning. Mike wasn't the type to stir up drama, and I knew he wouldn't have called unless he thought it was serious. "No," I said finally. "Not yet." By the time Emily came home that evening, I was already drowning in suspicion. She walked through the door with her usual poise, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. "Hey," she said, flashing me a tired smile. "What's for dinner?" I didn't answer right away. I just watched her, trying to read her expression, her body language. She seemed fine. Too fine. "How'd it go?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She shrugged, dropping her bag by the door. "Oh, the usual. Just a lot of boring back and forth." "I'm so glad it's over." Something inside me snapped. Mike was at the courthouse. Her head shot up, her eyes narrowing slightly. "What?" "Mike," I repeated, my voice steady. "He was there. He told me what the opposing attorney said about you and your boss." "Care to explain?" For the briefest moment I saw it. A flicker of panic. But she recovered quickly, crossing her arms and raising an eyebrow. "Seriously? You're taking courtroom theatrics at face value?" "Jason, they were trying to discredit me. That's literally their job." Her explanation was smooth, too smooth. She stepped closer, her voice softening, almost pleading. "You trust me, don't you? Don't let some lawyer's garbage get into your head." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But Mike's words lingered, an anchor of doubt pulling me down. "Why didn't you tell me they'd bring that up?" Her jaw tightened. "Because it's ridiculous, Jason. I didn't think it was worth mentioning." The tension between us was suffocating. I could feel the walls of our home closing in around me, the foundation of trust we'd built over the years suddenly riddled with cracks. "I need some air," I said finally, grabbing my keys and walking out the door before she could say another word. The night felt colder than usual as I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, my mind a chaotic storm of anger, doubt, and heartbreak. Something wasn't adding up, and deep down I knew I couldn't ignore it. Not anymore. I didn't sleep that night. After walking out, I drove aimlessly for hours, replaying the courtroom accusation and Emily's response in my head. Her calm confidence, her quick deflection, it was too perfect, too rehearsed. By the time I got back home, the house was dark and quiet. Emily was already in bed, her form curled beneath the blanket. I stood in the doorway of our room for a long time, staring at her. My wife, my pregnant wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone else in the world. But the nagging doubt refused to let go. The next morning, Emily was up before me, as if nothing had happened. She was bustling in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. It was like the tension from the night before had evaporated, at least on her end. "Morning," she said brightly when she noticed me. "I made eggs. You want some?" I forced a smile. "I'll grab something later." She frowned slightly but didn't push. "Suit yourself. I've got a client meeting, so I'll be home late." Of course, she would be. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at her half-empty coffee cup. The nagging voice in my head was louder now, screaming at me to dig deeper. I'd always trusted her, always respected her privacy, but now I wasn't so sure that trust had been mutual. Her laptop was in her office. I hadn't planned to go through it, but when I saw it sitting on her desk, the temptation was overwhelming. I opened it, feeling a pang of guilt that quickly drowned under the weight of suspicion. The password was the same as always, our wedding date. For a moment, that familiarity stung, a cruel reminder of what we'd built together. Her emails were clean, almost too clean, but her messaging app, the one she used for work, that's where I found it. A chat thread with her boss, Richard. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding as I scrolled through their messages. At first, it seemed harmless, work-related notes, reminders about meetings. But then, a shift. "Richard, can't stop thinking about last week. You looked incredible. We need to talk soon." "Emily, I know. It's been hard keeping my head straight. You've been on my mind too." "Richard, you sure he doesn't suspect anything?" "Emily, not a chance. Jason's too trusting. He'd never think twice." My hands trembled as I read those words. Every ounce of denial I'd been clinging to evaporated in an instant. My throat tightened, and my chest felt like it was caving in. I wanted to scream, punch something, break every damn thing in the room, but I just sat there, frozen. She was lying. Not just lying, manipulating, deceiving me with precision. And I'd fallen for it. I took screenshots of the conversation, sending them to my phone. I didn't know what I was going to do with them yet, but I knew I couldn't let her continue to play me like a fool. When Emily came home that night, I was ready. She walked in, all smiles, carrying takeout as if we were just any other happy couple. "I figured you didn't eat much earlier, so I brought your favorite," she said, holding up the bag. I didn't respond. "Jason?" she asked, her smile faltering. "Everything okay?" "Sit down," I said, my voice calm but ice cold. She blinked, clearly taken aback. "What's going on?" "Sit down." Her face hardened, but she set the takeout on the counter and sat across from me. I slid my phone across the table, the screenshots glowing on the screen. "What the hell is this, Emily?" Her eyes widened for a split second before narrowing into a defensive glare. "Are you serious? You went through my messages." "You're damn right I did. Answer the question." She leaned back, crossing her arms. "It's not what it looks like. Don't insult me." I snapped, my voice rising. "You think I'm stupid? You think I wouldn't notice what's going on? Your boss, Emily? While you're carrying my child." Her composure cracked, and for a moment, she looked panicked. Then, just as quickly, the mask was back. "You don't understand," she said, her tone sharp. "It's not like that." "Then tell me, what is it like?" She hesitated, her eyes darting to the floor. "I've been under so much pressure at work. Richard's been supportive. More than you have, honestly." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Supportive? Is that what you call it? You've been sneaking around with him behind my back." Her voice rose to match mine. "You don't know what it's like, Jason, being pregnant, dealing with work stress, and having a husband who's so obsessed with his own life that he doesn't even notice when I'm drowning. Don't you dare turn this around on me," I said, my voice trembling with fury. "You made a choice. You lied to me. Don't blame me for your betrayal." The room was silent for a moment, the air between us thick with anger and resentment. Finally, Emily stood, grabbing her bag. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this," she said coldly. "I'm going out." "Out? Are you serious right now?" She didn't answer, slamming the door behind her as she left. I was left alone, staring at the empty space where she'd just been, wondering how the hell my life had come to this. When the door slammed, I felt the echo reverberate through the house, rattling the carefully built facade of our life together. Emily didn't just walk out. She stormed out, as if she were the one who had been wronged. The nerve of it. I sat there, staring at the cold takeout containers she'd left behind, the smell of greasy food making my stomach churn. I wasn't hungry anymore. I wasn't anything anymore. Just a hollow shell of the man I'd been that morning. But I couldn't just sit and wallow. Not after what I'd seen. I picked up my phone and called Mike. "Jason," he answered after 2 rings, his voice heavy with concern. "What's going on?" "I need you to dig," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "I found the messages. She's cheating on me with her boss, Mike. I need to know everything." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, man. I really am. I'll start looking into it, but you sure you're ready for this? Once I start digging, there's no turning back." "I need the truth," I said firmly. "Whatever it is, I need to know." Mike sighed. "All right, give me a couple of days." After hanging up, I paced the house like a caged animal, my mind racing with questions. How long had this been going on? Was the baby even mine? The thought hit me like a truck, leaving me gasping for air. Could Emily have been lying about that too? I needed answers, and I needed them now. Hours passed before Emily came back. It was nearly midnight when I heard her key in the lock. I sat in the dark living room, waiting, my heart pounding as the door creaked open. She walked in, her makeup smudged, and the faint smell of wine clinging to her. She froze when she saw me. "Still up?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but there was an edge to her voice. "Where were you?" I asked, my tone deadly calm. "I told you I went out," she said, brushing past me. "With who?" She turned, glaring at me. "What, are you my babysitter now?" "I needed some air, Jason. I don't need to check in with you every time I step out the door." I stood, my fists clenched at my sides. "You're not answering the question." Her eyes narrowed. "You want the truth? Fine." I went to a bar, alone, because I couldn't stand being in this house with you, with your accusations and your paranoia. I didn't buy it for a second. "You were with him, weren't you?" Her face twisted into an ugly sneer. "You're unbelievable. Do you even hear yourself? You're obsessed, Jason. You've been snooping through my messages, interrogating me like I'm some kind of criminal, because you are. You betrayed me, Emily. I saw the messages. I know what you've been doing." Her mask cracked, and for a split second I saw something. Guilt? Regret? I wasn't sure. But then she laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that cut through me like a knife. "God, you're pathetic," she said. "You think this is all my fault? Maybe if you'd been a better husband, I wouldn't have needed someone else." The words hit me like a slap, but before I could respond, she stormed past me, heading for the stairs. "Don't walk away from me," I said, my voice rising. "We're not done." "Yes, we are," she snapped, not even looking back. I stood there, shaking with rage as I watched her disappear into our bedroom. I wanted to follow her, to force her to face what she'd done, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. She'd made her choice, and now I had to make mine. I didn't sleep that night. The tension in the house was suffocating, a heavy weight pressing down on me with every passing second. Upstairs, I could hear Emily moving around, her footsteps purposeful, her dresser drawers opening and closing. I knew what she was doing. She was preparing for battle in her own way, closing herself off, solidifying whatever story she planned to spin next. Meanwhile, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the screenshots on my phone. Each word was a dagger. The night dragged on, but I wasn't idle. I needed clarity. I needed to understand how deep this betrayal ran. I started going through everything, our shared calendar, bank statements, her credit card charges. First, it all looked mundane. Groceries, gas, lunch spots downtown. But then, tucked between familiar entries, a pattern began to emerge. Hotel charges. They weren't regular, but they were there. A random Friday 2 months ago. A Wednesday last November. Each one made my stomach turn. They weren't the kind of places we'd ever stayed together. No, these were discreet, business-class hotels just far enough from the city center to avoid being noticed. I took photos of the charges, adding them to my growing arsenal of evidence. By the time the sun rose, my plan was taking shape. I wasn't going to confront her again. Not yet. Emily was a master of spinning the narrative to her advantage. and I wasn't about to give her another opportunity to gaslight me. No, I needed to be smarter. Mike called around 9 a.m. "I've got some preliminary stuff," he said. "You sure you want to hear it?" "Just tell me," I replied, gripping the edge of the table. "Well, for starters, your wife's boss, Richard. He's been in the middle of a nasty divorce for over a year. His soon-to-be ex-wife accused him of having multiple affairs, but none of the women were ever named. Until yesterday, when Emily's name came up in court. The opposing attorney wasn't throwing that out as a bluff. They've got hotel receipts, Jason. Dates, times, all of it. They subpoenaed Richard's credit card records, and your wife's name is all over them." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "Are you serious?" "I'm sorry, man. There's more. Richard's wife has a private investigator of her own, and she's got photos. Not just of him, but of him and Emily together. They're supposed to be entered into the case next week." The world spun around me. Photos. Proof. It wasn't just texts and suspicions anymore. This was undeniable. "Send me everything," I said, my voice hollow. "Jason," Mike said softly, "you don't have to do this alone. If you need someone to talk to, just send it." I snapped, ending the call. By the time Emily came downstairs, I was ready for her. She looked immaculate, as if she'd spent the morning carefully crafting her image of innocence. Her makeup was flawless, her outfit polished. She even smiled at me, as if the previous night had been nothing but a bad dream. "Good morning," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. I didn't respond, my eyes fixed on her as she moved around the kitchen. "What?" she asked finally, her tone defensive. "You've got court again next week, right?" I said, keeping my voice calm. She froze for just a second, her back to me. "Yeah. Why? Do you think Richard's wife will be there?" Her hand tightened around the coffee mug, and I saw her knuckles whiten. "Why are you asking me that?" "Because she has evidence, Emily. Of you and him. Hotel receipts. Photos. All of it's going into the court record." She turned to face me, her eyes wide with shock. For the first time, her mask slipped, and I saw the panic underneath. "You're bluffing," she said, her voice trembling. I stood, pulling my phone from my pocket and opening the screenshots Mike had sent me. Photos of her and Richard, laughing together in a hotel lobby. Her hand on his arm, him leaning in close. Her face went pale. "Still think I'm bluffing?" I asked, my voice sharp and cold. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then, like a cornered animal, she lashed out. "You've been spying on me? You're insane, Jason." "I didn't have to spy, Emily. You left a trail a mile wide. And now it's all coming out in court. So tell me, what's your plan? Keep lying? Run? Or are you finally going to tell me the truth?" Her lip quivered, but instead of breaking down, she doubled down. "It's not what it looks like. Richard and we've been working closely for years. Those hotels? They were business meetings." "Business meetings?" I barked, laughing bitterly. "Do I look like an idiot to you? Stop lying." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Fine," she screamed. "You want the truth?" "Yes, Jason. I made a mistake. But you weren't exactly blameless, were you? Always working late, always distracted. Do you know how lonely I've been?" Her words were venom and they stung. But I refused to let her twist this around on me. "This isn't about me, Emily," I said, my voice deadly calm. "This is about you, your choices, your lies. And now, the truth is going to come out whether you like it or not." She stared at me, her chest heaving with anger, fear, and something else I couldn't quite place. For the first time, I saw her for what she really was. A woman who had gambled with our life together and lost. "You think you're so righteous," she spat. "But you have no idea what it's been like for me. And now I never will," I said quietly. "Because we're done, Emily. This marriage is over." Her eyes widened, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of regret. But then she turned away, her expression hardening. "Fine," she said, her voice cold and sharp. "If that's how you want it, then fine. But don't think for a second I'm going to make this easy for you." She stormed out, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the shattered remnants of what I thought was a happy life. But as painful as it was, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the one who had destroyed it. Emily's last words echoed in my mind long after she left the house. Don't think for a second I'm going to make this easy for you. I'd expected regret, maybe even a half-hearted apology. But this was war. The house felt emptier than ever. A hollow, lifeless shell. Every photo, every piece of furniture, every little detail of our shared life seemed tainted now. I spent the rest of the day sitting in the living room, replaying her words, her lies, her betrayal. The screenshots, the hotel receipts, the photos, they were all there, staring back at me from my phone like a sickening slideshow of my worst nightmare. Around 5 p.m., Mike called again. "Jason, I've got more," he said, his voice grim. "You sure you want to hear this?" I hesitated for a moment. Part of me wanted to say no, to shut it all out and pretend none of this was happening. But the other part, the part that had been blindsided and humiliated, wanted every last piece of the truth. "Tell me," I said finally. Mike sighed. "All right, so, Richard's wife's PI dug up some more dirt. It's worse than we thought. This wasn't a one-time thing, Jason. It's been going on for almost 2 years. Hotel stays, weekend trips, even company retreats. They were using work as a cover for everything. 2 years. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. That was nearly half of our marriage. While I'd been building a future for us, preparing for a family, she'd been sneaking around with her boss. My hands clenched into fists, my knuckles white with fury. "There's more," Mike continued reluctantly. "There's evidence she used some of the joint account funds to pay for a couple of their trips. It's not a lot, but it's enough to be concerning." "She used our money to cheat on me?" I growled, my voice shaking. "I'm sorry, man. I wish I had better news." I leaned back, trying to process everything. It was like every layer of betrayal just kept peeling back, revealing something worse underneath. "You said there were photos," I said. "Have you seen them?" "Yeah," Mike said carefully. "They're bad, Jason. I don't think you want to see them." "Send them anyway." There was a long pause before he finally agreed. "All right, but remember, this isn't about punishing yourself. It's about knowing what you're dealing with." Minutes later, the photos landed in my inbox. I opened them, my stomach churning as I scrolled through the evidence. There they were, Emily and Richard, arm in arm at a beachside resort, their faces lit up with smiles. Another photo showed them entering a hotel together, his hand on her lower back. And then the worst, a blurry but unmistakable image of them kissing in a car parked in a secluded lot. I slammed my laptop shut, my breathing ragged. This wasn't just an affair. It was a life she'd been living behind my back, a life where I didn't exist. I called my lawyer next. "Jason, I'm sorry to hear about this," said Lisa, the attorney I'd worked with on some contracts in the past. "But if you're ready to move forward, we need to start preparing. Given the evidence you have, you're in a strong position." "I want everything," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Full custody of the baby, the house, everything. She doesn't get to walk away from this unscathed." Lisa hesitated. "Jason, I understand your anger, but we'll need to tread carefully. The courts tend to favor a shared custody arrangement, especially with a newborn involved. But the financial misconduct, the affair, that works in your favor." I didn't care about the logistics. I just wanted to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she'd inflicted on me. When Emily finally came home that evening, I was ready for her. She walked in with a forced calm, setting her purse on the counter and looking at me like I was some nuisance she had to deal with. "We need to talk," I said, standing in the doorway to the kitchen. Her eyes narrowed. "About what? Haven't you said enough?" "I'm filing for divorce," I said bluntly. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer in the next few days." For the first time, she looked genuinely shocked. "Divorce? Are you serious?" "Jason, don't be ridiculous. We're about to have a baby. That's the only reason I'm still here," I shot back. "But you made your choice, Emily. You chose him. Now you can live with the consequences." Her face twisted with anger. "You think this is going to hurt me? Fine. File your stupid divorce. But don't think for a second you're going to take my baby away from me." "Our baby," I corrected, though the doubt in my mind lingered. "And don't worry. I've got plenty of evidence to show the kind of person you really are." She scoffed. "You're pathetic, Jason. You think the courts are going to side with you? You're just a bitter, jealous man who can't handle a strong woman. I took a step closer, my voice deadly calm. A strong woman doesn't lie. A strong woman doesn't cheat. And a strong woman doesn't use her family's money to fund her affair. Her face fell for a moment, the mask slipping again. But she recovered quickly, crossing her arms and glaring at me. You'll regret this. No, Emily, I said. The only thing I regret is trusting you. She turned on her heel and stormed upstairs, slamming the door behind her. I stayed where I was, the weight of everything crashing down on me. This wasn't just the end of our marriage. It was the end of the life I thought I knew. But for the first time, I wasn't scared of what came next. I was ready to fight. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Emily pacing upstairs. The heavy thuds of her footsteps shook the ceiling, as if she were stomping out her frustration with every step. I stayed downstairs, sipping my coffee, waiting for her to make the first move. I didn't have to wait long. She came down the stairs with a folder in her hand, her face a mixture of defiance and smug determination. She dropped the folder onto the kitchen table in front of me, the slap of paper on wood breaking the silence. You want to fight? Fine, she said, crossing her arms. But don't think I'm just going to roll over and let you take everything. I looked at the folder without touching it. What's this? Leverage, she said, her tone icy. You think you're the only one who can dig up dirt? I've got plenty to say about you, Jason. The late nights, the business trips, the networking events. You think you're a saint. I couldn't help but laugh. A sharp, bitter sound that echoed through the room. Is that your angle now? Trying to paint me as the bad guy? Her eyes narrowed. I'm just saying you're not as innocent as you like to think. And when the court hears about how absent you've been, how little support you've given me during this pregnancy, they're going to see you for what you really are. Absent, I repeated, standing up so quickly the chair scraped loudly against the floor. I've been working my ass off to provide for this family while you've been sneaking around with your boss. Don't you dare try to rewrite history, Emily. She smirked, the expression infuriatingly smug. We'll see what the judge thinks. I leaned forward, planting my hands on the table, meeting her glare head-on. You can spin whatever story you want, but it doesn't change the facts. I have proof, Emily, proof of your affair, your misuse of our money, and your lies. So go ahead, play your games. But when this is over, you're going to lose everything. For a moment, her confidence faltered. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and she looked away. But then she straightened, her defiance returning like a shield. You think you can scare me? You don't know who you're dealing with, Jason. Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with, I said coldly. And I'm done letting you manipulate me. She grabbed the folder and stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door to her office behind her. I sat back down, my hands trembling with adrenaline. This wasn't just a divorce. It was a war, and Emily had made it clear she had no intention of fighting fair. That afternoon, I called Lisa to update her. She's trying to flip the narrative, I said, claiming I was absent, that I didn't support her during the pregnancy. She's even threatening to bring up my work trips. Lisa sighed. That's standard in cases like this. She's trying to create doubt, muddy the waters so the court doesn't see her as the sole bad actor. But if we stick to the facts and the evidence, you're still in a strong position. What about custody? I asked. That's where it gets tricky, Lisa admitted. The courts will consider what's in the best interest of the child. With the baby not even born yet, they'll be cautious about removing the mother from the equation, especially if Emily argues that you've been distant or unsupportive. Even with the affair? It helps your case, absolutely, but custody battles are rarely black and white. That's why we need to stay focused and avoid any emotional outbursts that could be used against you. I ran a hand through my hair, frustration boiling beneath the surface. I just want to protect my child, Lisa. I don't trust her. Not after everything she's done. I know, she said gently, and we'll do everything we can to make sure you're in the best position to do that. After the call, I felt a sliver of reassurance, but it wasn't enough to calm the storm inside me. Later that evening, Emily emerged from her office, her expression carefully neutral. She acted as if nothing had happened, as if we weren't in the middle of tearing each other apart. What are you doing for dinner? She asked casually. I looked at her, incredulous. "Are you serious right now?" She shrugged, leaning against the counter. "We still have to eat, Jason. Might as well keep things civil." "Civil?" I said, laughing bitterly. "You want civil after everything you've done? Don't pretend like this is just another day." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Suit yourself. But if you want to keep making this harder than it needs to be, that's on you." I watched her walk away, the weight of her indifference settling over me like a heavy fog. The person I'd married was gone, replaced by someone cold, calculating, and unrecognizable. And yet, deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The real fight was still to come. Emily's calm demeanor was more unsettling than her anger. She moved through the house like nothing was wrong, cooking her meals, organizing the nursery, even humming under her breath as if our marriage wasn't teetering on the edge of collapse. Meanwhile, every interaction felt like a test, a power play where she was trying to get the upper hand. The next day, my lawyer, Lisa, called with an update that threw fuel on the fire. "Jason," she said, her voice tight, "Emily's lawyer just contacted me. She's claiming that you've been verbally abusive and emotionally neglectful during her pregnancy." I froze. "What? That's not true. I've never laid a hand on her. Never even raised my voice unless we were arguing about her lies." "I believe you," Lisa said, "but this is a strategic move. She's trying to paint you as unstable to strengthen her position in the custody battle. If this goes to court, she'll use these allegations to argue that you're unfit to co-parent." I gripped the phone tightly, the rage simmering just beneath the surface. This is insane. She's trying to turn this around on me after everything she's done. "Unfortunately, it's a common tactic," Lisa replied. "That's why we need to stay ahead of her. Keep your composure, avoid any confrontations that could escalate, and document everything. Every conversation, every interaction. Record it if you can, as long as it's legal in your state." That evening, I decided to take her advice. I bought a small recording device and set it up discreetly in the living room, knowing that most of our conversations happened there. I wasn't proud of it, but Emily had shown me time and time again that she wasn't playing fair. It didn't take long for the first cracks to show. The next morning, as I was leaving for work, Emily stopped me in the hallway. She was dressed immaculately, her makeup flawless, her expression icy. "Before you go," she said, "we need to talk about the nursery budget." "What about it?" I asked, already weary of her games. "Well, considering you're planning to divorce me, I think it's only fair that I handle the design and expenses. You don't need to have a say since you'll be less involved." I clenched my jaw. "Less involved? I'm still the father, Emily. I'm not going anywhere." She tilted her head, a small, mocking smile tugging at her lips. "We'll see about that." I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. She wasn't just trying to hurt me. She was trying to erase me from the equation entirely. "You really think this is going to work, don't you?" I said quietly. "You think you can lie and manipulate your way into getting everything you want?" Her smile faded, replaced by a steely glare. "I don't have to think, Jason. I know. And you? You'll end up exactly where you deserve to be, on the outside, looking in." I didn't respond. There was no point. I turned and walked out the door, my hands trembling with suppressed anger. But later that day, the recording device delivered exactly what I needed. When I got home, I checked the audio and found a snippet of Emily talking on the phone with someone. Her lawyer, I assumed. "I don't care if he fights back," she said, her voice cold and detached. "Just drag this out as long as possible. Make him bleed. I want him to regret ever thinking he could win." The recording sent a chill down my spine. She wasn't just trying to win. She was trying to destroy me. The next day, I sent the recording to Lisa. "This is exactly what we need," she said, her tone triumphant. "If we can prove she's acting in bad faith, the court will see right through her." But Emily wasn't done yet. That evening, I got home to find her sitting in the living room, her arms crossed and her expression furious. She was holding her phone, and from the look on her face, I knew something had set her off. "Care to explain this?" she asked, shoving the screen in my face. It was a screenshot of a text exchange between me and Lisa, discussing the case. Somehow, Emily had managed to hack into my phone or my email account. "What the hell, Emily?" I snapped, stepping back. You've been spying on me? Don't act so innocent, she hissed. You're trying to take my child away from me. I'm just leveling the playing field. That's my lawyer, Emily. You've crossed a line. She stood, her voice rising. You crossed the line when you decided to turn this into a witch hunt. I'm not just going to sit here and let you ruin my life, Jason. Ruin your life? I said, laughing bitterly. You did that yourself the moment you started sneaking around with Richard. Don't blame me for the consequences of your choices. She stepped closer, her face inches from mine. You're going to regret this. I'll make sure of it. I didn't back down. No, Emily. The only thing I regret is trusting you. And when this is over, you'll see just how wrong you were to underestimate me. The battle lines were drawn, and there was no turning back. This wasn't just about our marriage anymore. It was about survival, and I wasn't going down without a fight. The tension in the house had reached a boiling point, and every interaction with Emily was a carefully veiled power struggle. I'd started recording every conversation, documenting every move she made, and working closely with Lisa to prepare for the inevitable showdown. Emily, on the other hand, was in full attack mode. She spent hours in her office on the phone, probably scheming with her lawyer or, worse, Richard. She acted like she already had the upper hand, her smug confidence a constant reminder of the woman I no longer recognized. The court date for the custody hearing arrived faster than I'd expected. The atmosphere in the courtroom was oppressive, the air thick with unspoken accusations and tension. Emily sat at her table, perfectly poised, her lawyer whispering something in her ear. She gave me a brief glance, her eyes cold and calculating. I didn't look away. The first part of the hearing was procedural, laying out the evidence, outlining the claims. Then Emily's lawyer went straight for the jugular. Your Honor, the woman began, her tone dripping with feigned concern. Our client, Emily, has endured emotional neglect throughout her pregnancy. Mr. Carter, she gestured toward me with a rehearsed air of disdain, has been more focused on his work than his wife, leaving her isolated and unsupported during one of the most vulnerable times in her life. I clenched my fists under the table, but I kept my face neutral. I'd been warned not to react, no matter how outrageous the claims. And beyond his neglect, she continued, her voice rising with manufactured outrage, Mr. Carter has demonstrated a disturbing pattern of controlling behavior, even going so far as to invade Emily's privacy. He has been monitoring her conversations and movements, which has left her feeling unsafe in her own home. I felt my blood boil. The hypocrisy was almost laughable. She was the one who had been sneaking around, lying and hacking into my accounts. Your Honor, Lisa interjected calmly, standing to address the judge. These claims are baseless. We have substantial evidence that Mrs. Carter has been engaging in an extramarital affair, misusing joint funds, and actively attempting to alienate Mr. Carter from his unborn child. Furthermore, the recordings and documents we've provided will demonstrate who has truly been acting in bad faith. The judge's expression didn't change, but I could see the gears turning. He gestured for Lisa to proceed. First, Your Honor, I'd like to present a series of text messages between Mrs. Carter and her employer, Richard Sloan, which clearly established the nature of their relationship. These messages were obtained legally from Mrs. Carter's personal device. Lisa handed a stack of printed texts to the judge, who began flipping through them, his brow furrowing slightly. Emily shifted in her seat, her mask of confidence slipping ever so slightly. And here, Lisa continued, are financial records showing that Mrs. Carter used joint marital funds to finance trips with Mr. Sloan, including hotel stays and personal expenses. Emily's lawyer stood quickly, trying to counter. Your Honor, these so-called financial records could easily be misinterpreted. Many of these charges could be legitimate work-related expenses. Lisa didn't miss a beat. We also have photographic evidence, Your Honor, which was obtained by a private investigator hired by Mr. Sloan's spouse as part of their ongoing divorce proceedings. These images clearly show Mrs. Carter and Mr. Sloan engaging in activities that cannot be described as work-related. The judge raised an eyebrow at that, nodding for Lisa to proceed. She handed over the photos, each one meticulously labeled with dates and locations. I chanced a glance at Emily. Her jaw was tight, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles were white. For the first time, she looked genuinely nervous. The judge reviewed the evidence in silence before looking up. Mrs. Carter, do you have anything to say about these allegations? Emily's lawyer stood again, her expression carefully composed. Your Honor, my client maintains that her relationship with Mr. Sloan was strictly professional. Any insinuation to the contrary is a gross mischaracterization. Before Lisa could respond, the judge held up a hand. Mrs. Carter, I'm speaking to you directly. Are you denying that the nature of your relationship with Mr. Sloan went beyond professional boundaries? Emily hesitated, her mask slipping further. For a brief moment, I saw a flash of panic in her eyes, but then she straightened, her voice calm but unconvincing. Yes, Your Honor, I am denying it. Those photos are being taken completely out of context. I could feel Lisa tense beside me, but she didn't need to say a word. The judge was already flipping through the texts again, his expression hardening with each page. Mrs. Carter, he said finally, his tone sharp. These messages, along with the financial and photographic evidence, paint a very different picture. I would strongly advise you to reconsider your stance before proceeding further. Emily's lawyer whispered something to her, but I couldn't hear what it was. All I knew was that, for the first time since this nightmare began, the tide was turning in my favor. As the session ended for the day, Emily shot me a glare that could have burned through steel. But I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt like I was regaining control. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. But for now, I had the upper hand, and I wasn't about to let it slip away. The courtroom tension didn't dissipate as the session ended. Emily stormed past me, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, her lawyer trailing behind, whispering furiously in her ear. I didn't follow. There was nothing left to say to her. Not now, and maybe not ever. Lisa pulled me aside as we left the building. This is a good start, she said, her tone cautious. The judge is taking the evidence seriously, but don't get overconfident. Emily's lawyer will try to poke holes in everything we've presented, and you'll need to stay calm through it all. I nodded, though my chest was still tight with anger and adrenaline. Emily's lies were unraveling, but I knew better than to think she'd give up without a fight. That evening, back at the house, Emily was waiting for me. She sat in the living room, her legs crossed, her expression venomous. Her lawyer must have prepped her, because the Emily in front of me wasn't nervous or panicked. She was seething, her anger like a coiled snake ready to strike. You're really going to do this? She spat as soon as I walked in. Drag our private lives through the mud like this? I dropped my keys on the counter, refusing to rise to her bait. I'm not the one who destroyed our lives, Emily. That was you. She laughed bitterly, standing up and crossing her arms. Oh, please, don't act like you're some innocent victim. You've been waiting for an excuse to make me the villain, haven't you? You did that yourself, I said evenly. All I'm doing is showing the truth. The truth? She snapped, her voice rising. The truth is, you've been emotionally checked out of this marriage for years. I was miserable, Jason. Miserable. And if you'd paid even the slightest bit of attention, you'd know that. I felt a flare of anger but kept my tone steady. So, your solution was to cheat? To lie to me for years? To throw away everything we built together? Don't act like our marriage was perfect, she shot back, her voice dripping with contempt. You buried yourself in work, ignored me, and expected me to just sit here and wait for scraps of your attention. Richard made me feel seen. He made me feel valued. Something you haven't done in a long time. I shook my head, disbelief coursing through me. You're seriously blaming me for this? For your choices? Do you even hear yourself? Her face hardened, her voice icy. You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible. To feel like nothing you do matters. Don't give me that, I snapped, my composure slipping. You had a choice, Emily. You could have talked to me. We could have worked through it. But instead, you lied. You cheated. And now you're trying to justify it by rewriting history. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. You think you're better than me, don't you? But let me tell you something, Jason. When this is over, you'll wish you'd never gone to court. I'll make sure of it. Go ahead and try, I said, my voice cold. But no amount of threats is going to change the fact that you're the one who destroyed this family. Her lips curled into a cruel smile. You don't know what I'm capable of. I stared at her, The woman I once loved, now unrecognizable. Neither do you. The rest of the night passed in tense silence. Emily retreated to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her, while I stayed in the living room, trying to process the confrontation. But then, something unexpected happened. Around midnight, I heard the soft chime of her phone in the kitchen. She must have forgotten it there in her rush to storm off. I shouldn't have looked, but curiosity and suspicion won out. The screen lit up with a notification. A message from Richard. Richard, we need to talk. Things are getting too messy. Call me when you can. Messy. The word stuck with me, twisting in my mind like a knife. I grabbed my phone and took a photo of the screen, adding it to the growing pile of evidence. The next morning, Emily came downstairs, her mood colder but more composed. She picked up her phone without looking at me, scrolling through her messages. I waited for her reaction when she saw the text from Richard, but she didn't say a word. Instead, she grabbed her purse and walked out without so much as a glance in my direction. As the door slammed shut, I realized something. Emily wasn't just fighting to win custody or save face in court. She was fighting to hold onto the crumbling illusion she'd built around herself. But I wasn't afraid of her anymore. The truth was out there, and with each passing day, her lies were falling apart. The only question now was how far she'd go to try and stop it. The cracks in Emily's facade were widening, and for the first time, I felt like I was seeing her desperation. She was still defiant, still determined to fight me at every turn, but her moves were becoming sloppy. The message from Richard haunted me. Things are getting too messy. What did that mean? Was he cutting her loose? Turning on her? I didn't have to wait long to find out. 2 days later, Lisa called me with news that hit like a lightning bolt. Jason, you're not going to believe this, she said, her tone vibrating with restrained excitement. Richard's lawyer reached out to the court and filed a motion to distance him from Emily in this case. He's claiming she acted without his knowledge or consent when she used company funds for their trips. I nearly dropped the phone. Wait, he's throwing her under the bus? Not just that, Lisa said, her voice tight with amusement. He's cooperating with his wife's divorce team to avoid further fallout. Apparently, he's trying to save his own skin by shifting the blame onto Emily. I let out a sharp breath, leaning back in my chair. So, he's willing to testify against her? It's not confirmed yet, but it's looking that way, Lisa replied. And if he does, it'll be devastating for her case. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. For all her smug confidence, Emily had backed the wrong horse. Richard was a cornered animal, and he was throwing her to the wolves to save himself. But Emily didn't know I knew yet, and I wasn't about to tip her off. The next time we were in the same room, it was almost eerie how calm she was. She cooked dinner like nothing was happening, humming softly under her breath. She even asked me if I wanted a plate. No, thanks, I said curtly, barely looking at her. She paused, turning to face me. You're not going to give me the silent treatment forever, Jason. Eventually, you're going to have to talk to me like an adult. I set my glass of water down with deliberate slowness, meeting her gaze. What's there to talk about, Emily? You've made your choices. Now you're dealing with the consequences. Her eyes narrowed, her expression hardening. Don't act like you're blameless. You pushed me into this. Pushed you, I said, laughing bitterly. You really can't own up to anything, can you? This is all on me, right? The lies, the cheating, the money you stole. It's all my fault. She stepped closer, pointing a finger at me. You think you're so perfect, Jason? Fine. Let's see what the court thinks when they hear how you've been recording me without my consent. That's illegal, you know? I smirked. Not in this state, Emily. As long as one party consents to the recording, it's admissible. And guess what? I consented. Her face twisted in anger, but she didn't respond. She turned sharply, grabbing her plate and walking out of the room. The next day, the hammer dropped. I was in my office when Lisa called, her tone sharp and urgent. Jason, we've got a development. Richard has officially agreed to testify against Emily. He's providing evidence to the court, emails, expense reports, and even text messages showing that she was the one orchestrating their business trips. Are you serious? I said, barely able to believe it. Dead serious. This changes everything. With Richard's testimony, Emily's entire narrative falls apart. It's not just about her affair anymore. It's about financial fraud, manipulation, and bad faith in this custody case. The court's going to take this very seriously. I hung up and sat back in my chair, trying to process it all. For the first time in months, I felt like the scales were tipping in my favor. Emily had been so focused on winning at all costs that she hadn't considered the possibility of betrayal from her supposed partner in crime. That evening, Emily came home later than usual, her expression tight and strained. She barely looked at me as she walked through the door, heading straight upstairs without a word. An hour later, I heard her voice echoing down the hallway. She was on the phone, yelling at someone, Richard, no doubt. I crept closer, careful not to make a sound, and caught snippets of her words. You coward! How could you do this to me? I protected you. Don't you dare try to turn this on me. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I almost felt pity for her. Almost. But then, she said something that made my blood run cold. I swear, if you ruin this for me, I'll make sure you go down too. Don't think I won't. It wasn't just desperation, it was a threat. I stepped away from the door, my mind racing. Emily wasn't just lashing out. She was cornered, and cornered people do dangerous things. The next morning, Lisa called again. Jason, we need to move quickly. With Richard testifying, Emily's credibility is in shambles, but that also makes her more likely to escalate. Be careful. Don't give her any ammunition to use against you. I won't, I promised, but deep down, I knew things were about to get worse before they got better. Emily was losing control, and she wasn't going down without a fight. Emily's desperation was palpable in the days following Richard's betrayal. She was like a volcano ready to erupt, the tension in her every movement making the house feel like a war zone. She barely spoke to me, but when she did, her words were sharp and venomous. Enjoy your little victory while it lasts, she sneered at breakfast one morning. You think this is over? It's not. I'll make sure you regret this. I didn't take the bait. I refused to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, I kept my head down and stayed focused on the case. Lisa was in constant contact, updating me on the mounting evidence against Emily. Richard's testimony, combined with the financial documents and the recordings, had painted a damning picture. But Emily wasn't done yet. 2 days before our next court appearance, she played her next card. I came home from work to find a police car parked in front of the house. My stomach dropped as I walked inside, only to be greeted by 2 officers standing in the living room. Emily sat on the couch, her eyes red and puffy, looking every bit the victim. Mr. Carter? One of the officers said, stepping forward. We need to speak with you. What's going on? I asked, glancing at Emily, who refused to meet my gaze. We received a report from your wife alleging that you've been engaging in threatening behavior, the officer said. She claims you've made her feel unsafe in the home. I stared at Emily, my jaw tightening. That's a lie. The officer raised a hand. We're not here to make judgments, sir. We're just responding to the report. For now, we need to ask you to leave the premises until this matter is resolved. She's setting me up, I said, my voice calm but firm. I haven't threatened her. I've been recording our interactions precisely to avoid this kind of false accusation. The officers exchanged a glance. Do you have those recordings available? Yes, I said, pulling out my phone. I played back a snippet of one conversation where Emily had threatened me, her voice clear as day. You'll regret this. I'll make sure of it. The officers listened, their expressions neutral but attentive. All right, one of them said finally. This complicates things, but until we can verify everything, we still need to err on the side of caution. I felt a surge of frustration but kept my composure. Fine, I'll leave, but I'll be forwarding all this evidence to my lawyer. I packed a bag and left, my hands trembling with anger as I drove to a friend's house. Mike, ever the reliable confidant, welcomed me with a knowing look. She's pulling out all the stops now, huh? He said as he handed me a beer. She called the cops on me? I said, shaking my head. Claimed I threatened her. She's trying to paint me as abusive to save herself. Mike sighed. It's a classic move. She's desperate. That's good news for you, though. It means she's running out of options. The next day, Lisa called with a plan. "Jason, we're going to file an emergency motion to address her false allegations," she said. "We'll present the recordings and Richard's testimony as evidence of her bad faith. The court doesn't take kindly to fabricated claims, especially when they're used as a weapon in custody disputes." "What happens if the court sides with her?" I asked, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "They won't," Lisa said confidently. "We've got too much evidence on our side. Just stay calm and let me handle it." When the court hearing arrived, Emily sat across from me, her expression a mixture of defiance and unease. Her lawyer tried to paint me as a controlling and volatile husband, but Lisa dismantled their argument piece by piece. "Your Honor," Lisa said, her voice steady and authoritative, "we have multiple recordings that contradict Mrs. Carter's claims. Furthermore, these recordings show that Mrs. Carter has repeatedly threatened and manipulated Mr. Carter in an attempt to gain an advantage in this case." She played one of the recordings in court, the one where Emily had screamed, "You think you're better than me? I'll make sure you lose everything." Emily's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced her with a raised hand. Lisa continued, "In addition, we have testimony from Richard Sloan, who has confirmed that Mrs. Carter used company resources and engaged in deceitful behavior to conceal their affair. These actions speak to her credibility or lack thereof." The courtroom was silent as the judge reviewed the evidence. Finally, he spoke. "Mrs. Carter," he said, his tone stern, "it's clear to this court that you've engaged in a pattern of dishonesty and manipulation. Your accusations against Mr. Carter appear to be unfounded and malicious. Moving forward, any further attempts to mislead this court will not be tolerated." Emily's face went pale, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she didn't respond. The judge turned to me. "Mr. Carter, you've presented compelling evidence. This court finds no basis for the claims against you, and the restraining order request is denied. Furthermore, we will take Mrs. Carter's actions into account during the custody deliberations." It was a small victory, but a significant one. As the hearing ended, I glanced at Emily, expecting another glare, another venomous remark, but she just sat there, staring at the table, her composure finally cracking. For the first time, it seemed like she realized the gravity of what she'd done. But for me, the fight wasn't over. It wasn't just about winning. It was about protecting myself and my child from the wreckage she'd created. And I wasn't about to back down. The courtroom had felt like a battlefield, and leaving it that day, I knew Emily's armor was finally cracking. The judge's reprimand and denial of her restraining order had stripped away the last of her veneer, leaving her vulnerable for the first time in months. But I also knew better than to let my guard down. Emily wasn't the type to surrender quietly. In the days that followed, the house became a ghost town. Emily barely spoke to me, retreating into her office or leaving for hours without explanation. I kept my distance, documenting every interaction and staying in constant communication with Lisa. The next court hearing was just around the corner, the one where custody and financial matters would be decided. One evening, while I was reviewing notes in the living room, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mike. "Mike, you're not going to believe this. Emily just met with Richard at a cafe downtown. I've got pictures." My chest tightened as I opened the photos. There they were, seated at a corner table, leaning in close. Emily's expression was tense, and Richard looked annoyed. Whatever they were discussing, it was serious. I immediately forwarded the photos to Lisa. "Can we use this?" I asked when she called me minutes later. "It depends," she said. "If they're plotting something related to the case, we can argue bad faith again. I'll dig into it." "Good catch, Jason." The next morning, Emily came downstairs looking disheveled, her usual poise absent. She grabbed a cup of coffee and sat across from me, breaking the uneasy silence. "I want to talk," she said, her voice flat. I raised an eyebrow. "Talk about what?" "This isn't good for either of us," she said, her tone carefully measured. "The court battles, the accusations. It's not healthy. For me, for you, or for the baby." I stared at her, searching for an angle. This sudden change of tone wasn't an olive branch. It was strategy. "What are you suggesting?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "A settlement," she said, folding her hands on the table. We can avoid dragging this out in court if we come to an agreement now. I leaned back, crossing my arms. What kind of agreement? Joint custody, she said quickly. 50-50. And we sell the house, split the equity. No child support. I laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. You must think I'm an idiot. After everything you've done, you think I'm just going to hand over 50-50 custody. Her eyes flashed with anger. You don't have a choice, Jason. The court isn't going to cut me out of my child's life. I'm the mother. I leaned forward, my voice cold. The court is going to see you for what you are. A liar, a manipulator, and someone who put her selfish desires above her family. I don't care what you offer, Emily. I'm fighting for what's best for my child. And that means protecting them from you. Her face hardened, and she stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You'll regret this, she hissed before storming out of the room. The next court date arrived with an air of finality. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. Lisa and I had prepared meticulously, compiling every piece of evidence, every recording, and every financial document to present our case. The courtroom was tense as the hearing began. Lisa laid out the timeline of Emily's affair, the financial misuse, and her attempts to weaponize false allegations against me. The photos of her meeting with Richard were introduced, suggesting ongoing collusion to undermine the case. Emily's lawyer tried to paint her as a devoted mother, claiming her actions were the result of stress and emotional strain. But the evidence was overwhelming. When it was Emily's turn to testify, she was composed at first, repeating the same rehearsed lines about feeling neglected and unsupported. But under cross-examination, Lisa tore through her defenses like a scalpel. Mrs. Carter, Lisa said, holding up a document. Is this your signature on the authorization for the withdrawal of joint funds? Emily hesitated. Yes, but... And did you use these funds for personal trips with Mr. Sloan, as these bank statements show? She swallowed hard. It wasn't like that. Richard and I... Just answer the question, Mrs. Carter. Did you or did you not use marital funds for these trips? Yes, Emily admitted, her voice barely audible. The room fell silent, the weight of her admission hanging in the air. Lisa wasn't done. She moved on to the recordings, playing key snippets where Emily had threatened me and admitted to her manipulation. Emily's lawyer tried to object, but the judge allowed it, his expression growing sterner with each revelation. Finally, Richard took the stand. His testimony was the final nail in the coffin. He confirmed their affair, detailed how Emily had suggested using company resources to cover their tracks, and admitted that their relationship had been ongoing for nearly 2 years. By the time the hearing ended, Emily looked like a ghost, her carefully constructed lies reduced to rubble. The judge's ruling came the following week. I was awarded primary custody, with Emily receiving limited visitation. The financial settlement heavily favored me, given her misuse of joint assets. The house was mine, and Emily was ordered to repay a portion of the funds she had taken. When the ruling was read, Emily sat silently, her face pale and unreadable. She didn't look at me as we left the courtroom. It was over. As I walked out of the courthouse that day, a strange mix of emotions washed over me. Relief, sadness, anger, and a faint glimmer of hope. Emily had lost, but there were no winners here, not really. The life I thought I'd built was gone, replaced by something fractured and fragile. But as I stepped into the sunlight, I realized something. I was free. Free to rebuild. Free to protect my child. Free from the lies that had bound me for so long. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Bye-bye.